The Athletic.
Hello and welcome to the Race F1 briefing on Saturday the 26th of October 2024. I'm Rob Hansford, and in tonight's episode we're going to recap all of the action from the day in Mexico City. The Mexican Grand Prix seems to have a habit of providing plenty of action and incidents, and today was no different, with a very busy qualifying session featuring one red flag and a few big names dropping out early, and even the pole sitter came as a slight surprise. So how did qualifying pan out? Well, let's find out. Coming in hot off the back of an impressive performance in the United States Grand Prix, where it secured a dominant 1-2, Ferrari once again ended up as pace setter for a second consecutive weekend in Mexico. Ferrari has been quick all weekend so far in Mexico, but after FP3 and the early stages of qualifying, it looked as though Lando Norris would be most likely to take pole position for Sunday's race. However, when Q3 came around, Carlos Sainz had other ideas, spoiling the party to take pole position, setting a time good enough to beat Red Bull's Max Verstappen by just over 0.2 of a second to top the timesheet. It was a deserved performance too. Sainz has been looking fast all weekend, having ended up inside the top 3 in every session so far. And it suggests that Ferrari has made real gains in performance compared to Red Bull and McLaren since F1 returned from the autumn break. Sainz's teammate wasn't too far behind either, providing further evidence that Ferrari could now well be entering the mix for the Constructors' Championship in the remaining races of the 2024 season. Charles Leclerc didn't quite have the pace to match Sainz in Q3, but was able to go fast enough to take 4th on the grid for Sunday's race. He said he was disappointed, but not surprised by the result, adding, "I was struggling and not feeling well with the car since FP2, and that's the way it is. In Q3 the lap was coming very nicely until turn 10, when I lost the car, but I had to take those risks because I didn't have the pace. I think P4 is not that bad, but of course, disappointing." But with there being a very long run down to the first corner, it could be the perfect position for the Monegasque driver to strike on the opening lap when the race gets underway tomorrow. So can Ferrari secure a second consecutive 1-2 in tomorrow's Grand Prix? Well, given how the weekend's gone so far, those odds are starting to look really rather short. Carlos Sainz might have been the driver to secure pole position on Saturday, but as ever, all eyes were firmly on the championship contenders, Verstappen and Norris, over the course of qualifying, and there was no margin for error either. The short Mexico City circuit means the whole field was tightly bunched up in every qualifying session on Saturday, and although Verstappen had a late scare at the start of Q3, he was able to bounce back right at the end of the session to end up ahead of his championship rival for tomorrow's race. Verstappen has had a difficult weekend so far, having been plagued with an engine issue on Friday. As a result, Red Bull changed his engine for another one in his pool, therefore avoiding a penalty. And the issue seemed to have firmly been resolved once qualifying got underway. As usual, Verstappen was at the sharp end of the timesheet throughout all 3 qualifying sessions. But on his first flying lap in Q3, he made a rare mistake by going over the white lines at turns 2 and 3, resulting in his lap time being deleted for a breach of track limits. It meant the current world champion had it all to do on his final flying lap. And although he missed out on taking pole position, he did do enough to secure second on the grid. And considering how his weekend has gone so far, he'll take that as a win. However, while everything worked out as planned for Verstappen, the session slightly got away from Norris in the final stages of Q3. When it really mattered, Norris didn't quite have the pace to match Sainz or Verstappen, but speaking immediately afterwards, he suggested that third on the grid was as good as he could have realistically hoped for. He said, "I'm pretty happy with third, honestly. I feel like I got to the limit of the car quite quickly, which made us look good. I struggled to get more out of it in the final 2 laps. Carlos and Max did good laps, especially Carlos, who has been quick all weekend. So yeah, I'm happy with it." The 2 championship protagonists might not be looking out the front row for tomorrow's race, but given there's plenty of overtaking opportunities at play in the Grand Prix, you'd be unwise to think that we're not going to see these 2 racing wheel to wheel at some stage on Sunday. But can they avoid another controversy if they do? Time will tell on that front.
The Race F1 briefing.
It wouldn't be the Mexican Grand Prix if there wasn't an upset or 2 at some stage in the weekend, and that's exactly what happened in the opening qualifying session on Saturday. While their teammates were fighting for the top slots on the grid, Sergio Perez and Oscar Piastri found themselves floundering at the back, with both drivers failing to make it out of Q1. A poor qualifying performance at his home Grand Prix is not what Perez wanted or could have afforded, with a seat at Red Bull for next year in jeopardy, and with both the RB drivers Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda showing strong pace around the Mexico City circuit. But that's exactly how things panned out for Perez, with the Mexican driver only able to get his Red Bull to 18th on the grid for Sunday's race. It was a disastrous result on a weekend where Red Bull has generally been struggling. But what made matters worse for Perez is the fact his teammate Verstappen was able to haul his car forward when it really mattered. Speaking after the session, however, Perez stated that it doesn't seem to be the speed of his car that's the issue. His biggest problem is slowing it down. He said, "I've been struggling quite a bit with braking. Every time I tried to brake and attack the braking, I put too much energy into the tyres and that made it very tricky for me to stop the car." Perez added that it's an issue he's been having to work on for the last 3 races, and that he's having to moderate his braking quite a lot. The issue seems to be when he's braking in a straight line, which is not overly helpful when you're driving an F1 car at over 200 miles an hour in Mexico, and added that the team are not able to fix it at the moment. It's not yet clear if this is a specific problem with Perez's car, or him not liking its braking feel and losing confidence as a result. But either way, it gives him a legitimate excuse for not making it out of Q1, unlike McLaren driver Piastri. Piastri will start Sunday's race from 17th on the grid, a huge disappointment after going fastest in FP3. But the McLaren driver said that he was just simply trying too hard. "We just had very, very little grip on that second lap, which was a shame, but I shouldn't even have needed it," he said. "The pace looks very strong and I felt quite comfortable. I just tried a bit too much in turn 12 and it bit me hard." Piastri added that his mistake at turn 12 cost him over a second, so he believes he would have been comfortably through had he not made the error. But F1 isn't in the game of ifs, buts and maybes, and now he needs to put together one hell of a recovery drive if he's going to pull his weight in helping McLaren extend its Constructors' Championship lead over Red Bull and Ferrari tomorrow. Up until qualifying, RB's Yuki Tsunoda had been one of the standout drivers of the weekend so far. He was immediately on the pace when running got underway on Friday, ending both FP1 and FP2 in third. Even when the pace ramped up for FP3, Tsunoda was still in the mix, ending up 7th fastest ahead of the Mercedes of George Russell. That speed continued into the opening session of qualifying, and Tsunoda ended the first of the 3 sessions in 7th again, ending up with a time that was more than 2 tenths faster than his teammate Liam Lawson, who was 13th in Q1. As a result, Tsunoda was expected to sail through Q2, but on his final flying lap he made a mistake at turn 12 and went off the track, crashing heavily into the wall. It was a bitter blow for the Japanese driver, and would not have helped his chances in trying to persuade Red Bull that he's a driver they should replace Sergio Perez with. What made matters worse for RB was that Tsunoda's crash brought out the red flags, meaning neither he nor Lawson were able to progress into Q3. Instead, they will line up 11th and 12th respectively for Sunday's race, which, considering the team's form on Friday, is something of a disappointment. Speaking after the session, Tsunoda said, "Having a front lockup was already game over. No way I could make the corner. Bit strange. I didn't push hard there. And throughout the weekend I didn't have any front lockup, any lap in that corner. Surprised by that. Shame that we're not able to maximise this opportunity." And as Josh Suttle said on the Races Live Hub, if Red Bull is only considering Perez, Tsunoda and Lawson for a 2025 seat alongside Verstappen right now, then it's currently Lawson who is looking like the safest pair of hands of the trio. Those of you that have been keeping up to date with all of the fallout from Verstappen and Norris's incident in Austin last weekend will know that McLaren lost its appeal to have Norris's 5-second penalty overturned late on Friday. But while the FIA would not be moved on the penalty issued to Norris, it has agreed to review its guidelines about the rules of engagement when it comes to racing going forward. A meeting has now been planned for the penultimate round of the 2024 season in Qatar next month, where the FIA, Single-Seater Commission and the Grand Prix Drivers Association will be able to discuss potential changes to the racing guidelines. Drivers will also be part of the conversation, enabling them to provide their opinions on how they should be able to go racing in the future. And if the guidelines are agreed in Qatar, there's a chance they could be implemented before the end of the current season. Until a discussion takes place, it's not clear how substantially the guidance could change, but discussions are likely to centre around 2 key points based on Friday's briefing. The first would be cleaning up the rules on what the defending driver can do. The FIA doesn't believe Verstappen broke any rules in his approach to defending in Austin, but his approach has highlighted that something might be missing from the guidelines. And it's likely that a vital line of the 2022 guidelines could be up for discussion, but the defending driver needs to stay within the limits of the track. Within that change is also a push to tighten up other vague points of the guidelines for the defending car, like car positioning at the apex, and how to define overtaking on the inside and outside of the corner. The second issue that's already been raised by several drivers is the need for clearer track limits. Several drivers have already suggested that a gravel strip at turn 12 in Austin would have changed the way the incidents played out, but a specific change at that corner would be tricky because of the surface beneath the track there. Regardless of the Austin specifics, it's clear that drivers want further clarity and some changes going forward. The question now is how much those guidelines will change and whether or not it will improve the overall racing spectacle. Well, that's about all of the main talking points covered from what was a very busy Saturday. The grid is nicely set for an exciting Grand Prix tomorrow, and there's plenty of storylines to keep an eye on as the race unfolds. Can Sainz secure a second win for Ferrari in as many weekends? Will Norris and Verstappen be able to stay out of trouble? And how much of a recovery will Sergio Perez and Oscar Piastri be able to make? Make sure you tune in tomorrow to find out as we recap all of the main talking points from what looks set to be a cracker of a race. We'll see you then.
The Athletic.
As you've probably heard by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code The Athletic. Make your first deposit of at least $10, place your first bet on any game, and claim your voucher for a 1-year subscription to The Athletic. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Mississippi, New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager.